Destination Medicine is a collaborative initiative of regional training hubs. With first-hand lessons learned from those who have gone before, this podcast is designed to assist and inspire anyone interested in pursuing a medical career in rural and regional Australia.
Welcome to Destination Medicine. I'm Nicole Goodman. You've heard the term Rural Generalist, but what would that really entail as a career choice? The government would like more of you to consider becoming a Rural Generalist. They've committed $62 million to the National Rural Generalist pathway to encourage doctors into training to meet the current and future healthcare needs of Australian rural and remote communities. You would become part of a rural healthcare team providing comprehensive general practice and emergency care, as well as other specialist care in hospitals and local community settings. And for a first-hand account of what all this means, we turn to Teena Downton. Teena is a rural generalist with advanced skills in obstetrics, based in Cowra in the central west of New South Wales. Teena wears many hats. She's a medical educator for GP Synergy and the Australian College of Rural and Remote Medicine. She works at the local emergency department and as a GP obstetrician at Cowra District Hospital. She has a 1 in 8 roster of being ward supervisor and she works in general practice. And as if she had time for anything else, somehow she fits in running, playing soccer for the local team, playing the piano accordion in a folk band, and raising chooks. But let's go back to the start. When did Teena first realise that she wanted to study medicine and become a rural GP? Teena takes Heather Dawson back to her later school years.
When I was in Year 11 and Year 12 at school, I had to start thinking about which university degrees I wanted to apply for, and that's when I had to start thinking about what career path I was going to pursue. I guess I found myself drawn to doing a career, something to do with health, as it would allow me to use my interest in biology and helping others, and then I decided a bit further that I wanted to do medicine, as I'd seen some of the good work that the GPs in my community were doing. They seemed to be quite well regarded for their knowledge, and they were very much appreciated for the care they gave to their patients. I unfortunately didn't get into medicine straight out of high school, and so I spent some preparatory time doing a Bachelor of Medical Science at the University of Wollongong. And during that degree, I found that my exposure to health and medical concepts reaffirmed my interest in heading in the medical career direction. However, interestingly, my involvement in extracurricular activities at the university through the University Rural Health Club actually helped put me on the rural career path I am on today. When I was growing up, I heard from a lot of people that one had to go to the city and get more in the metropolitan centres to get ahead in your career and to have an important career. However, through my involvement with the Rural Health Club, I found that this was actually wrong, and that by bucking the trend and going rural with a health career was actually a great way that you could still challenge yourself to become a better health professional, for me, become a better doctor, while still having a great time and having a rewarding standout career. So essentially, I decided I wanted to do rural practice when I was in my university training, but I really settled on doing general practice once I became a doctor.
Well, can you tell us a little bit more about the pathway that you took to become a rural generalist?
I successfully applied to enter onto the GP training pathway when I was undertaking my internship at Tamworth Hospital. I completed my resident year also at Tamworth Hospital before taking up an obstetric position at Orange Base Hospital as part of the New South Wales Rural Generalist training program. In the obstetric position which I held at Orange, I learnt how to manage women in labour, manage various complications associated with birth and delivery, and perform caesarean sections. Through that training year, I was able to achieve the requirements of the advanced diploma of the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, which recognised that skill set, and subsequently moved to Cowra in the central west of New South Wales to consolidate those skills and complete my GP training. I completed my GP training last year in 2018 and am now working as a fully qualified rural GP, obstetrician and rural generalist in Cowra.
So what sparked your interest in obstetrics, and have you thought about becoming a full-time obstetrician?
It was something, admittedly, that did cross my mind, and I guess I really enjoyed my obstetric rotations as a medical student and as a junior doctor. I really loved the clinical variety of work that you could do in obstetrics, where you could be seeing patients on the maternity ward, seeing patients on the labour ward, going off to do clinics, seeing emergency department consults, as well as being able to operate in theatre. So that big mix of different things to be doing day in, day out really appealed to me. However, I also was really drawn in my medical student years to general practice, and I thought that my perception of the doctor I wanted to be was someone who could manage a wide range of different things, and I also like the idea of being able to develop longer term relationships with patients. So that combination, not surprisingly, was amazing when I could put it together in the combination of a GP obstetrics career.
Now, I understand that during your university studies that you spent a lot of clinical time in some quite remote areas of Australia. So where did you go, and did that further incentivise you to the rural career?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up on the south coast of New South Wales, and so the south coast has always been considered my home and my most familiar ground. However, I found that while I was at university, the chance to undertake student placements in other parts of the country or other parts of the state was a great way to, I guess, make the most of being able to see other parts of this amazing country that I'd never seen before, as well as test how I'd cope and manage living somewhere several hours away from a city such as Sydney. When I was a student, I spent a year in remote outback New South Wales in Broken Hill, and I also decided to spend 6 weeks in Katherine in the Northern Territory. Through this experience, I learned that I actually felt pretty comfortable living in rural communities. I love the landscapes that you could see out in these places, and I really found that there was a really nice sense of community. I found that I also really enjoyed seeing the variety of cases that would present to the doctors working in these towns, and I also found that the challenge of rural medicine was really appealing. So as placements really affirm my interest on becoming a rural doctor of some sort.
Well, what other challenges have you found to working in a rural community, as well as the rewards?
I think when you're working rurally, you really need to think about the logistics, the factor about distance and your patient's social situation, probably more than you would normally have to if you were a GP seeing a patient in the city. You need to factor these into your management decisions, often because the next tier of help is not just down the road, but often at least a decent car ride away, where you're looking at least an hour or more of commuting. Another challenge that sometimes makes people a little bit wary of trying rural is potential for being isolated from family or friends. I've been lucky that I've been able to make some good friends inside and outside of work through my career in Cowra. However, I do find that I do need to make a conscious effort to stay in touch with those of my friends who live in the city, who are not quite as able to come and see me as often as if I was more based in a city area. In saying this, I do think that the rewards of working rurally are quite endless. I love the opportunity to be able to work in a close-knit community, a medical community where everyone knows everyone and we help each other out. Where we're a bit short on resources, we make do, and because we know each other quite well, we know what our skill sets are, and so we tend to work really well in teams. The lifestyle's pretty good. The sunsets are spectacular. I think the scenery is amazing. And patients are genuinely quite friendly and appreciative of the doctors in the town. Work-wise, I think that there's been a lot of benefits as part of doing training in a rural area. I think my training in Tamworth and Orange prior to moving to Cowra really got me to be able to be closer to the action I found that there wasn't really much competition from other trainees to see pathology and to do procedures. As a junior doctor, I found that I was able to take on greater responsibility than perhaps some of my city colleagues. And that was because I was able to get to know my bosses more, and they were happy to let me step up and learn more on the job.
So, what advice would you give to junior doctors or medical students thinking about a career as a rural generalist?
Well, I'd say consider Rural Generalist as a exciting and quite flexible and open career option that you can essentially mould it and play with it is to suit your interests and suit the needs of your community. It's a career option which really allows you to extend yourself clinically, and it'll give you the confidence to essentially be able to manage a wide range of potential medical problems that might come through the door. It's got great variety, and it's really truly rewarding to be able to be providing a service in some of these smaller communities that essentially is helping patients be able to access quality care close to home without having to travel vast distances. One of the particular reasons I decided to do general practice with obstetrics was because I was quite passionate to help maintain maternity services in smaller towns so that rural women could have the option to birth closer to home. I guess the other advice I'd give is that you don't have to become a rural GP or a rural generalist to contribute to rural communities. There's lots of other ways, either through advocacy or taking into account factors of your rural patients, that you can make sure that rural patients, wherever they are in the health system, are well looked after.
Do you have or have you had a mentor to help you along the path you've taken?
I've been fortunate to have a lot of positive people around me during my medical student and junior doctor training who have supported my interest and passion in becoming a rural GP and also becoming a rural GP obstetrician. Currently, my main mentors are the GP obstetric team members in Cowra, where I moved in the last 3.5 years. They've really role modelled to me what a great team can be built to provide services in a small community where we work together and we have a great shared roster of the ENCORE. And they've really shown to me what I would like to do for a decent part of my career to have that great variety in my work, but also help maintain an important local service.
Oh, well, final question, Teena. Any memorable moments in your career that you'd like to share with us?
As a junior doctor, I must say that one of the interesting times in my training was as a intern working in the emergency department at Tamworth Hospital during Country Music Week. We'd continually, as doctors, be baffled by the range of musculoskeletal injuries that would come in after a night on the dance floor by some of our patients. We also, I guess in my career, have had a lot of really good times through some of the extracurricular advocacy work I've done behind the scenes, trying to help work with organisations to advocate for rural health. I've been lucky over the last few years to meet with health ministers and other members of parliament, and I've really been astounded by the support and interest that a lot of members of parliament have in hearing from young up-and-coming professionals like myself about what we can do to try and shape health systems and policies into the future that are going to be taking into account the way that my generation wishes to work. And every week when I'm working in Cowra and every time I'm able to be involved with births in the community, it's just very rewarding seeing patients coming back and seeing little ones grow up and seeing the impact that I'm making in patients' lives.
Teena Downton, Rural Generalist, Cowra, New South Wales. This is Destination Medicine. Thanks for listening.
Regional training hubs are supported by funding from the Australian Government under the Rural Health Multidisciplinary Training Program.